Y'all in the winning circle, shot some squares though. You in the killing fields, ignoring the scarecrows. Yeah, ho, I'm Benny Blanco in the last scene, making the power play high off of caffeine. This is a tag team, fantasy the bad dream. The male version of Kerry killing the class queen. Bati bloggers quit dodging my emails. Take that whack shit off, the real prevail.
Welcome to FreeLunch Podcast, home of the New South Movement and the New South Movement Network. This is your boy Tight, one half of the FreeLunch Podcast duo. BG, we got another good one.
We do. Why would we do anything less than bring in some heat on this FreeLunch Podcast? So,
this is 100%.
We got a big one. We got a great one in store for the family today.
It's 100% heat. And what I like about it, BG, is that this is the definition of New South Movement. And this is exactly what the New South Movement is all about. It's promoting folks from the South our own. It's making certain that we continue to push this Southern movement forward. And when you got the best of the best on the podcast, it don't get no better, BG.
We're dealing with championship stuff right here. We're working with champions, world champions to be more exact.
World champions. And so everybody has been, everybody's heard about the controversy that's surrounding what was supposed to be the upcoming WBC championship, in which one of our own, Alabama, we love him, Deontay Wilder, was going to defend his WBC Heavyweight Championship against Alexander Povetkin. Unfortunately, that will not take place this weekend. I'm very interested in finding out if that will ever take place. But it doesn't get any better when you have the guy that really identified, found him. He came into his gym, and the rest is history. You've heard him on a previous podcast, but we got Skyboxing's own Jay Deas on the podcast today. Jay, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How are you guys doing?
Man, we are excited. First, thank you for joining us. It's always a blessing when you can have family on the podcast. I mean, ever since we met you, you've been welcoming and you've had open arms to us. And so just thank you for the access.
Oh, no problem. Glad to be here.
So what has life been like? It's been a crazy 24 hours. I guess 48, 72 hours for you all. Are you in Tuscaloosa? Are you in Sheffield, England?
We just got back, not last night, but the night before, from Sheffield, England. What the deal was, we were supposed to fight this upcoming weekend, the 21st, in Moscow. But we didn't want to go to Moscow. You know, you have to acclimate because you're talking about 8-hour time difference. And, boy, I'm going through that right now coming back home, I tell you. But there's a lot of jet lag, and you don't feel like yourself, and it just takes a lot of time to get where you feel right. They say an hour a day, so you'd have to be there. If it's an 8-hour time difference, you'd have to be there at least 8 days ahead of time. But we wanted to go about 16 to 20 days ahead of time just to make absolutely sure that Deontay was totally feeling like himself. But we didn't want to do all that in Russia. We wanted to do that among our people we knew, people who were friends of ours. So we decided to have the last 2 weeks of training camp in Sheffield, England, and then go from there to Russia the final week, because England is 6 hours time difference. Russia's 8 hours time difference. So we could get most of the jet lag off of us and finish camp in Sheffield and then go on to Russia. But we never made it to Russia. The night before we were going to leave, we got the news that Povetkin had failed a drug test and went through a couple of days of craziness, and then we came back. So we just got back, and we're kind of in the middle of a little tornado here, trying to find out what's going to be happening next.
Obviously, everyone's interested in kind of how things are going, but there have been conversations just within the state of Alabama. I know within our own personal circles. I've did my best to explain it. I'm not an expert. We've had other guests on our show that's done his best to try to explain it. But even, can you take us back to, I believe it was January, February time frame, how does the WBC Heavyweight Champion of the world have to defend his title in Moscow? Are you able to explain the purse bid and how that whole thing went about?
The way it works is we were supposed to fight Povetkin in 2015, and then he asked for more time. He said he couldn't be ready. He needed more time to prepare. So we went ahead and fought in January against Arthur Szpilka in New York City and won that fight. Deontay knocked out Szpilka in the 9th round. So we were back on with Povetkin, and we were hopeful to do that fight in New York. Well, the way it works is, generally speaking, challengers, will go where the champion wants to do the fight because the money really rests with the champion. In this particular case, Povetkin has a lot of money behind him. So they said, no, we don't want to fight in New York. We want to do it in Moscow. And we said, we want to do it in New York. So what happens is if you can't agree, then it goes to what's called a purse bid. And that's basically you submit an envelope, and whoever's envelope has the higher amount is who gets the fight. The amount being the combination of the two purses. So anyway, Povetkin's people won the purse bid. I think our bid was $5.1 million. Povetkin's team, their bid was $7.15 million. And so a lot of people thought we would vacate the title, we wouldn't go to Russia, that somehow Deontay was avoiding fighting Povetkin, but of course that was never the case. So we said, pack our bags, we're going to Russia. So that's how that happened. They simply outbid us.
What is that initial feeling when you realize that you might have to make, or you will have to make, that trip to Moscow to defend the belt?
Well, we were, Deontay, he, as an amateur, he fought in Russia. He also fought in China, Argentina, and a few other places, Trinidad. So as a pro, he's fought in Mexico a few times, Puerto Rico, England. So, if you're a world champion, you got to fight around the world. So as long as the judges were going to be WBC appointed judges, and the referee was WBC appointed referee, and the inspectors were neutral, and the ring was an appropriate size ring, and all those things you negotiate. As long as there was a level playing field, we really didn't care where we had to go because we've wanted this fight for a long time.
I read an interview, and I found this interesting. Deontay questioned, or he actually in a previous interview, he mentioned that he thought Povetkin was taking steroids. We fast forward. He failed a drug test that was conducted around that mid-April time frame. I believe it was 21st. What was it, or had you guys talk about as you negotiate these different rules and regulations? Was that something that you all talked about as far as the testing and the doping leading up to this fight? Was that a concern?
Absolutely. Deontay actually got in trouble for that. Was threatened to be sued and all this for saying what he said. And he said, it's just his opinion, but he thinks the guy's, doing something. But what happened was, Povetkin's always been a strong guy, but he's always carried a little bit of weight, around. Some people have even called him pudgy. He's not pudgy. He's a very strong guy, but he's a heavyweight, and he had a little bit of weight on him. And then all of a sudden, when he fought Mike Perez, there was an absolute like shocking difference in his appearance. And even when he walked to the center of the ring for the stare down, I had like 3 people call me before the fight even started and said, "Oh my God, look at this guy! Like, this is, have you seen this? Are you watching this?" And they're all like, "What in the world is going on with him?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but we all saw the same thing. He was just, all of a sudden, he was the Incredible Hulk." And so that's why Deontay said what he said. Well, fast forward to our negotiations, and I got to give Lou DiBella credit for this. Lou said, our promoter, he said, we want stringent drug testing, we want blood testing, we want urine testing, and we want it to be random. We want the highest caliber of drug testing that can be done, and we want it done by an American institution, which is the voluntary anti-drug agency, VADA.
VADA.
They're known as the best,
Mm-hmm.
and they can come at 2:00 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can be on vacation with your family and they'll show up. You can
Mm-hmm.
be at dinner. It doesn't matter whenever they show up, you have to stop what you're doing and go take your drug test. And they do that equally for both guys. If they're testing us at 7:00 in the morning, they're testing him at 7:00 in the morning. And we were on board with that because Deontay's a clean fighter, and
Mm-hmm.
he was tested since the Olympics. He's been tested since before the Olympics, and he's never once failed a drug test. And because he's a clean fighter, and we want a level playing field, so we jumped on board and said, you can start testing us today. And so that's why we wanted that in there. We just wanted a level playing field as any fighter.
Is that standard, Jay, just across the board as far as the sport of boxing goes, to have like that drug testing component be mandatory in the time leading up to these fights?
Unfortunately, it's not. And the reason it's not is because it's very expensive, and basically the fighters have to agree to pay for it. So for most fights, the purses would not be high enough to justify, coming off multiple thousands of dollars in testing. But for something like this, it is. So I guess what I can answer that question by saying at the very highest level, where the purses are up there and from the several $100,000 range all the way up, into the millions, yes, those guys generally want the testing and do the testing. But on the lower levels where the money's not so much, they may do something like a urine test after the fight, those kind of things. So this is just a much more extensive, comprehensive testing than is done for most fights.
And BG, Floyd, and I have to commend him. He's been an advocate of this type of testing from what I've read and from what I've seen. He's always, his words, not mine. He's cleaning up the sport. So that's something that I've always I didn't know that it didn't happen. I didn't know that it was, Jay, what you just told us, how how it was expensive and that type of money was being spent. That is new information to me, but it's very valuable. Was Povetkin, were there people, were they eager to accept this offer? Did they provide any pushback during the negotiations that you are aware of?
Well, Lou DiBella has been quoted, our promoter has been quoted as saying that there was a lot of back and forth negotiation, and that they, I don't want to use the word delayed, but it took a while for them to begin testing. That there was a lot of back and forth about it, and that Lou said that he would have liked for testing to have begun like 10 weeks out, but it wound up being like 7 weeks out or 8 weeks out. And so in retrospect now, of course you have to wonder, why the delay? What was the problem? Did somebody know something? Somebody knows something that nobody else knew. Why are you delaying? Whereas our side, we're ready. You can test Deontay today, tomorrow, next week, next month, 2 a.m., 5 a.m. You bring it. Anything you want to do to test Deontay, we're on board with. But that's apparently wasn't the case for everybody. So see, the thing that you got to remember is this is not track and field. This is not tennis. This is boxing. And if you're doing something with a banned, if you're taking a banned substance in track and field, you may win the race where maybe you wouldn't have won the race. You may have enhanced your performance, and you may cost your opponent some prestige, self-esteem, and maybe even some money in endorsement deals since you're winning and they're not. But you're not physically maiming, you're not physically harming your track opponent. In boxing, by taking something, anyone who takes something in boxing that is banned, that is enhancing their performance, is enhancing their ability to directly assault another human being. You see what I'm saying? Like,
definitely,
it's dangerous enough a sport as it is, and so it is really more than just you that we're talking about, because in boxing, you are literally enhancing your ability to hurt another man. Could you imagine if Deontay Wilder were on performance enhancing drugs when he hit Arthur Spielka or hit Kelvin Price or hit, some of these guys. I mean, this is how dangerous this sport is. That's why it has to be clean.
What was the reasoning behind the delay, the delay from Povetkin in 2015?
It was actually I found it quite humorous. He said that he had a fight coming up in November against Marius Wack, and because of his November fight, he would not be ready for a January fight, which sounds like a pretty reasonable, on its surface, that sounds pretty reasonable. The problem, though, is that his fight before that was all the way back in March, and he went one round against Mike Perez. He knocked Perez out in one round.
Right.
So our question was, you knew you're the mandatory. You fought in March. You didn't fight in April, May, June, July, August, September, October. Now you decide to fight in November and say you're not ready in January. Why couldn't you have fought Marius Wack in June? Why couldn't you have fought Marius Wack in May,
right,
July, or August?
Right.
And you would have been plenty ready for your mandatory defense, your mandatory shot in January.
Right.
So that I found kind of peculiar.
After you've agreed to have the fight, fast forward to February, January, had Deontay and Povetkin, had they did any promotionals together that put them face to face?
Very good question. No, we were asked. I think, to go for a press conference in Moscow that would have broken our training in Sheffield. And I'm not sure who made the request or how valid that information was, but I said absolutely not. We can do a teleconference from camp. We can set up and certainly, that's why they have technology today. We can certainly do a teleconference and appear and help out with the promotion that way, but we can't leave in the middle of our, next to last week of training and interrupt our schedule like that.
Yeah, because I didn't see any meetings. I do remember him being at the Barclays when Deontay fought Artur Spitzer, but he didn't even get in. Tyson Fury got in the ring and put on his antics, and Povetkin didn't even get in the ring. So
Povetkin is more of a laid back. He's not like a huge talker or anything like that. So I didn't think he would jump in the ring and start anything. That's really not his style. But Lou DiBella, I want to say this: Lou DiBella rolled out the red carpet for the Russians. Povetkin and his team had the best of seats. They had the I think access to the luxury box with the food and the drink and credentials, and Lou really rolled out the red carpet.
Well, tell Lou to put free lunch in the luxury box next time. We were there, but we weren't in the luxury box.
Yeah, well, I know what Lou was doing. He was saying, hey, if Povetkin wins the first bid, we want to have a good working relationship with their people.
Right.
But that was not reciprocated. It was just I guess the way they are, the way it goes. But the red carpet was not rolled out the other way. It was a one-way red carpet.
Yeah, a one-way with no return. Let's talk about the kind of the setup for this fight in boxing circles. Even with the work that Deontay has put in his career, 36-0 with 35 knockouts, there are many people that are still questioning him as a boxer. I guess from an experience standpoint, from a style viewpoint. And this fight was kind of labeled as that fight that was going to be this opportunity for him to come out as a true champion in everybody's eyes, as being ready to be in that position. What was the camp's mindset as you prepare for this?
Well, not really, because we've always gotten a kick out of that, because everybody said, everybody has 20/20 hindsight when it comes to Deontay. At the time we fought, Kelvin Price, he was undefeated, 6'8", 240 pounds, a Roy Jones fighter nobody wanted to fight. and we jumped at the opportunity to fight him and knocked him out. And then Malik Scott, 36-1, slickest boxer in the game, best skills in the game. Everybody said, this is your moment. We're going to see what you're made of. One round later, he wasn't anything. Stavern, here it is. This is the fight. This is the one that's going to prove, And of course, he dominates Stavern, and so on. So there's always, no matter what you do, people are always, they're always gonna want that next thing to prove yourself, which is okay. But this was a defining moment in terms of I think more the fact that we were willing to go to Russia and do it in his backyard. I think that was a big part of it, and also the fact that he was a former gold medalist, a former world champion who had only lost one fight. That in a lot of people's minds, he was the toughest fight, on Deontay's ledger, and we were willing to take that fight. I think that was important. So camp was great. We were ready. Deontay looked great. We were ready to roll. We were one day away from flying, and when the news broke, so we were ready to go. We had lots of sparring partners great sparring partners, and Deontay was looking as good as he had ever looked.
Going into that fight, and given how judges and how you were going to hostile territories, was the mindset to knock this guy out so that it didn't go to the cards?
Well, I mean, I think, for me, that wasn't my big concern. Just to win the fight is all I'm after. Deontay, of course, wanted the knockout just because that's Deontay. He's such a knockout puncher. He's known for knockouts, and he wanted a knockout. I didn't have any questions about the judges. They were WBC judges. We've always felt like they've done a good job and that they're fair and that they're going to call it like they see it, and that's all you can ask for. These judges would have been flown in from around the world. They would not have been Russian, judges probably, or American judges. They would have been from neutral spots. So we didn't really have any concerns. We've always had a good relationship with the WBC, and Deontay's been a great champion of the WBC. But Deontay definitely wanted the knockout just for his own, put his stamp on this fight type of thing.
Explain to our audience, you're going to spend a weekend in Moscow. Are you guys preparing to bring your own food? Has the chef prepared a week's worth of meals for you guys? There has to be some hesitation in eating in Moscow with the fear of knowing that you're on enemy territory, so to speak, for lack of better words.
Well, we were going to be exceptionally careful with our water, anything that we ate. The plan was to have a chef that a friend of ours that lives there that was going to handle all that, and he was going to be able to help us make sure that everything that we ate was fresh and not tainted, that nobody had messed with our food or water. We're just going to have to be very careful because you hear of Lucas Brown. He went over there to fight Shagayev. He tested negative on all his tests until the week of the fight, and then he tested positive. So he feels that somebody spiked his food or water. And it's really just to be straight up. It's just sad.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous
that you can't go somewhere, and without worrying about these things. That this is a reputation that a place has. That would absolutely embarrass me if guys fought on my cards here in Alabama and our reputation was, oh, don't go there, you can't get a fair shake, or don't go there, they're going to mess with your food. Like, I want to beat you at your best. I want you at your best and me at my best. Let's tee it up, and let's see what happens. That's how it's supposed to be. So the fact that there's even a reputation for that is really bothersome. But we were going to have to be very, very careful, and I think you hit the nail on the head with that question, because more so than the judges, more so than the referee or anything else, that was my biggest concern, was making sure that we were good, that we weren't given something that would make Deontay sick, or tainted, to taint his test results or anything, because I know Deontay's clean, And so that was my biggest concern.
BG, what you got?
That's
Yeah,
a
go
lot.
ahead.
That is a lot to account for, on top of just preparing for the fight and the nature of that beast in itself. So that's a lot. But kudos to you guys for having a team that had that type of perspective to account for all of those things. I know that brings a lot of comfort to Deontay, knowing that you got a team that's strong behind your back, that's looking out for your best interest at every corner. So kudos to you guys on that.
Oh, absolutely. DeBella Entertainment had an entire team on the ground that was, going to be loyal to us, and from security to from A to Z. So we felt very comfortable as you can feel, going into that type of situation.
Let's fast forward. You guys, I saw on Instagram, obviously we follow, we keep up. We want to make certain that we do what we can to promote the hometown guy. You guys make a decision that you want to travel over to Sheffield, England. You guys were in a very nice jet or plane or however you describe it. Very nice. Training in Sheffield, that was going well. I think that's what you said earlier. Talk about leading up to the week prior, last week. How was training going last week? And kind of take us through each day leading up to Friday.
Well, typically when we got there 2 weeks ahead of time. Week 1 was going to be basically getting over jet lag. We were going to shake out at the gym, do a lot of stretching, get Deontay a massage, just really stretch out, shadow boxing, hit the mitts. And we took 3 sparring partners with us, and we allowed them to do the same thing. We went to the gym every day, but no sparring. Just let them shadow box and hit the bags, and just try to get so they felt like themselves. Because we brought the sparring partners only for the week of sparring. They would have been jet lagged and they couldn't have helped us much. So we brought them over when we went over, so that everybody was at their best as we entered week 2, which was our sparring week, our final sparring week. We worked Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, worked Thursday and Friday, and then we were going to fly on Sunday. So we were basically just going to do about 6 rounds a day of sparring, just to stay sharp, mostly timing. You don't want any injuries. You don't want to cut. You don't want to hurt hand. So we were working, just not a lot of rounds, but just mostly for timing, and everything was really coming together well.
So prior to getting on that plane, you had already done the 12, 15, 36 rounds at a time kind of training?
Well, the most we ever do, we'll do 12 rounds once in camp. And,
Okay.
And then it's kind of like a marathon runner. You're training for a marathon. You don't run a marathon every day. You kind of build up to it. You may run the actual marathon once before you actually do the marathon. But
Gotcha.
We do it unusual. Deontay, I think we're the only. In fact, I think we are the only group that does what we do. And I'll take credit for this one, because I sure would have had to take the blame had it not worked out well. But the way we do it is most camps go 8 weeks of training, and then the 9th week is the travel week to the fight. And the 8 weeks are comprised of 4 weeks of getting in shape, and then 4 weeks of sparring, and then you travel. With us, it's different. Deontay is always in shape. He's a ball of energy. He never stops. He's always playing basketball, or he's out on the water with his paddle boat or whatever kind of toys he's got out there on the water, the canoe or kayak or whatever it is. He's always on the go. So he's never out of shape. So it doesn't make any sense to do 4 weeks of getting in shape for a guy that's already in shape. And it doesn't make sense to put a guy through 4 consecutive weeks of sparring where he's just getting, beat down, and he's beating them down, and he's really wearing himself out 4 consecutive weeks in a row. It just seems like a recipe for an injury. So what we do is we do week 1, no sparring. Week 2, we bring in a group of sparring partners. Week 3, we go back to no sparring, which is where we just do the mitt work, heavy bag work. And what we do is we look at the film of the week of sparring, and then after that week, we correct whatever mistakes that we've seen during the non-sparring week. And so we just go 1 on, 1 off, 1 on, 1 off, all the way up to the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, we will spar both those weeks consecutively before we travel. So I came up with that, and it really, the first time we truly implemented it was before the Stavern fight. And I think it showed that it was the best. Everybody's different, but that was the best way for Deontay to do it.
BG, that's innovation. That's innovation right there.
101, science for the sweet science. Makes sense to me.
It does. So the last week you guys had done your sparring. How was the mental aspect of training camp going?
It was great. Sheffield was wonderful. We had a team over there that helped us when Deontay fought Audley Harrison. It was in Sheffield, and there's a heavyweight over there named Richard Towers. He's about 16-2, I think is his record. Huge guy, 6'7", 6'8", 250. And we met Richard and got to be great friends with him. And Richard set his team up of friends to help us. And that's who we used this time, was Richard and his friends took great care of us. We had drivers, we had logistics. It was perfect. And Richard, it was funny because our understanding, Richard told us that Povetkin's people called wanting Richard to spar because he's so tall. And Richard told him, no, I'm with Wilder. I'm not coming over there to help you. So I thought that was really cool. But it went, Russ Amber, my assistant coach, he picked the hotel out, and it was right in the middle of the city, which was perfect because we didn't have to, people handle jet lag differently. You get some people that just want to sleep for 2 days. You get other people that can't sleep. And because we were in the city center area, we didn't have to gather 12 people, which is how many people we took total. We didn't have to gather 12 people to go everywhere we needed to go. Hey, we're going to eat at noon. Everybody be downstairs. It wasn't like that. If you wanted to eat, you simply walked outside, and there was 100 restaurants to choose from. So it was perfect place.
Shout out to Russ. We follow him on Instagram too. He's in Moscow right now. Have you spoken to him at all? I saw the picture.
He just got back. He just got back. Russ is always our lead in terms of nobody's better at logistics and being meticulous. So whenever we do anything, we always send Russ 1 day ahead of time. So even in New York, we will typically, if the rest of us are going to fly if the rest of us are going to fly Saturday, Russ will fly Friday. And his job is to get there, make sure the rooms are right, make sure the airport pickups are right, make sure everything is everything, so that when we get there, we go right in with no problem.
Okay, so the pool tables don't keep him away.
Well, that's the added benefit for Russ, is he gets an extra night of playing pool and snooker. So he actually found a place in Moscow as he awaited our arrival, which of course never happened. So.
Right. I saw the interview that you did with Outside the Line. So some of this may be repetitive, but talk about when you guys first found out. I know with social media, I'm sure you'll share this, but with social media, the news spreads fast. How did you guys first find out from the rumor mill, and then how did you guys find out officially?
Well, I was actually at the gym. We were at the gym about to commence our last day of sparring, and one of the guys that drove us around, one of Richard Towers' guys, came over to me, and he was smart enough not to announce it to the room. He said, "Did you hear?" And I said, "What?" And he whispered, "Povetkin failed a drug test." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, look, don't say anything. I don't want any concentration broken from Deontay. Let's just get today's sparring done, and we'll deal with it afterward." And he said, "Okay." So then I called Russ over and Mark over, and I said the same thing. Don't tell anybody. I just wanted you guys to know. And they said, okay. But then as I looked around the room, the guys are beginning to warm up. Of course, everybody looks at their phone every 2 seconds in today's world. I'm 47, so I'm not quite that way, but I'm a little bit old school. But everybody, I could look around the room and I could see everybody's eyes get big one at a time, left to right. And everybody started looking at everybody. And I said, wow, okay, it's out already. And then I got in the ring to start working shadow boxing drills with Deontay, and he said, "Did you hear?" And I said, yeah, I heard. I said, "Don't worry about it. Let's control what we can control, and we'll find out later what this means." So we had a great day of sparring. As soon as it was over, I took Deontay into a side room, explained to him, what the information was as best we had it. I talked to
and when you say the best,
managers.
when you say you explained to him the best you had it, is this still information that's coming from social media, or had you guys now spoken with a public official from WBC or VADA or from
No, what
another?
after Deontay got through shadow boxing, when they were starting to put his gear on, I had a call from Shelly, my co-manager Shelly Finkel, and Shelly was on the phone with Al Heyman. And so I walked into the back room and we talked about exactly what information there was. And there wasn't much information. We were just told that he had failed a drug test, had come back positive. They thought it was this particular drug, Meldonium or whatever it's called, that it was primarily a drug used for endurance purposes. And that's all we knew. We didn't know anything else about what was going on. And so that was just very, very little information is what we had at that time. So we got through the sparring. I talked to Deontay about it, and I said, don't sweat anything until we get more information. And that's where we were at that point.
Does Al tell you guys to continue as is, or at that point had the conversation changed?
Well, no, at that point we were just in an information gathering phase, and Al is, a very, very smart man, and he was on top of it, and he was finding out exactly, what it was and what the substance was and what it means, and he was in touch with the WBC, and so we were basically just kind of still thinking we were going to Moscow at the time. And then the next day, of course, the news had exploded, and we were told to wait, until the WBC, made a ruling of some sort and found out exactly what. But at this time, we're starting the wheels are starting to turn in our minds, and we're like, Deontay, of course, he wants to fight because he's a fighter, but at the same time, he wants a level playing field. He just wants a fair fight, and we were just kind of going through all the scenarios and all the possibilities and trying to decide what to do and what the move was. And we actually kept our hotel an extra day and did not leave until there's no sense going to Russia if there wasn't going to be a fight. And Al and Shelly were in touch with the WBC, and then the ruling came out that there would not be a fight on the 21st.
That's got to be pretty disappointing. I know in my past as an athlete, you spend all that time and you wait for game day, and game day comes, you're ready to go. But if something like rain happens that calls the game off, you're just like, man, we did all of that to prepare for this moment. What was Deontay's response when it was finalized that the actual match was shut down?
Well, I don't know all the stages of grief, but they say, you got denial, then you've got anger, then you've got acceptance, and so on. I don't know exactly which way they go, but he kind of went through all of them pretty quick, and it was just very depressing for everybody because we put in so much work and so much energy and effort and money and all the things to do everything right. And that's the real tragedy here, is that Deontay Wilder did everything by the book right, and he was going to shine on fight night and show the world, that he's willing to go anywhere to fight anybody in their own country. It doesn't matter. And he was going to do his thing and win this fight in spectacular fashion. And then to have the rug pulled out from under you at the last minute, it'd be one thing if Povetkin got cut, or if he got a hurt hand, or Deontay got a hurt hand, or because these things happen. But this wasn't the case. This was a positive test, and in violation of the WBC's clean boxing program, and that's what made it so kind of infuriating for us.
Did Deontay and did you guys talk directly to the WBC outside of talking to Al or Shelly? Have they spoken directly to you and Deontay?
I have not. I leave. Al has the direct relationship with them more so than I do. I know. I talk to him when I see him, but Al is really the contact person, and he's the one that handles all that.
Yeah, only reason I ask is I guess the question is Have you guys heard the official stance on exactly the timetable in which sample A was tested negative? So I guess I ask this because I've read from VADA and from what other reporters have written is that he passed the three earlier tests. The dates kind of slew him out. I believe it was the 7th, the 8th, and the 11th of April, or it may have been the 8th, 9th, 11th, or what have you. Those tests were passed, and it was the 21st test that was failed. Um, has that information been validated, or is that something like has that been shared with you guys at all?
That's exactly what we've heard, is that he passed the test, no problem, as we did. And something that they do that, that's kind of interesting is, because it's random testing, that's just what it means. They can test you at any time. And the reason that they tested like the 8th and the 9th, you see those 2 days.
Oh, definitely. It makes sense. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's quite clever, actually, because most
very
guys,
clever.
if they were going to do something illegal, once they tested you and left, you would say, okay, I got at least a couple of weeks, I'm going to do something. Well, here they come right back 3 hours later.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense.
So the Russians claim that somehow this is traces of a drug that he took, several
pre-ban
5-6 months ago. That just doesn't make any sense because, you wouldn't have tested negative, and then hit a positive. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and just to give our audience some perspective, so the drug, how you pronounce it, BG?
Meldonium.
Meldonium. So it was banned it came on the ban list January 1st, 2016. So I guess what the Russians are saying is that in September it wasn't a banned substance. He took it and it had lingering effects that lasted until this April 21st. But to Jay's point, it was negative the first 3 times in April that he took it. And it's ironic that he hasn't asked for the sample B to be tested. Is there a reason why you wouldn't ask for the sample B to be tested?
I know you have to pay for your B test, but money's not an issue for them. So I'm not sure. That's a good question. I don't know what exactly, unless they're just admitting, like what they're saying is, no, we definitely took it. It's just was back then, as opposed to saying, oh no, that we've never taken that. That would be more a reason to test a B sample than saying, oh yeah, we definitely took it. We just took it 6 months ago. But my understanding is that it's a prescription. It's a prescription drug. It's not an over-the-counter thing, like something you could get at GNC. And even if it, certainly, if it wasn't on the ban list, then I guess it was fair game back, several months ago. But I would have been very, very, very wary if Deontay had told me, hey, I got this prescription I'm gonna get filled for this injectable drug that's gonna give me more energy or whatever. I would have. I said that just has red flag written all over it to me. Even if it's legal, I would have said that sounds crazy.
Are you familiar with that drug, BG?
No, I'm not. I mean, we don't do anything with that from a health standpoint. So no, I'm not. This is my first time knowing anything about it. So it's legitimately a substance, and it's a substance, as we've seen in other sports, that has been used as a performance enhancer. So I'm like Jay on that one with the weight of this fight, the money that was at stake, the I guess the acclaim, that you would gain from winning a fight like this and even participating. I wouldn't have even subjected myself to that, just to stay clear of any possibility of something going wrong.
Yeah, anytime you're getting a prescription for something, and I mean, you can see the accidental ones are almost something that, that you can understand if a guy, takes something from GNC and it's got something in it that maybe wasn't even on the label, which happens sometimes. And that's why I preach to Deontay to be so careful about anything and everything, because you really don't know. There's a lot of things out there that could test you positive, and you not even know that you just took a multivitamin and didn't know, that this or that or the other. You just have to be so careful. So for something where you would actually get a prescription and go get it. That for me, that would have been I would have been real as a coach. Any athlete of mine, I would have said, man, that's not something I would, that's not something I would advocate. I think Maria Sharapova had the same drug in her system and had said she had used it for a number of years. And what's the guy's name? Richard Conti or whatever from the Balco thing. He's a drug expert, and he said this is a major one in one of the interviews he gave. That I think his quote was something to the effect of, kind of could make you like the Energizer Bunny in terms of, the amount of endurance that it could give you. So it is. I'm glad it's a banned drug because, that's not something that you want the guy you're fighting to have in his system.
Was there ever any conversation at all that you guys would have been willing to have this fight given the level of Meldonium that was in his system, according to them saying it was low?
Well, that's really an interesting question because, I wear two hats, one as a coach and one as a manager, and sometimes those hats are at odds with each other. Your first thought is that, you've worked so hard and Deontay is so ready and you've wanted this so bad for so long that you just want to fight. I don't care what he's doing. I want to fight. I'm going to beat him regardless. But then common sense prevails, and even as much of a warrior as Deontay is and as much of a warrior spirit as he has, common sense prevails, and you have to make a stand. You have to do what's right. And making a stand meant, we're insisting on a level playing field. We'll fight anybody in the world. We want a level playing field. We want it to be fair for both guys. And these are things that Bermain Stavern and Eric Molina and Johan Duhaupas and Arthur Szpilka, all these guys were right in line with us. Absolutely, we want a fair fight. And so it just kind of came down to once you get enough information, you just realize you can't put your guy in a situation like that. It has to be a level playing field. Right is right and wrong is wrong. At the end of the day, as much as you want to do it, you just have to do the right thing. And the right thing was to take a stand for a clean sport.
Is the fight canceled or is it postponed?
That's been the funny thing is that they said they in the WBC came out and said it was postponed, but that doesn't fit my definition, my personal definition of postponed. Postponed is you hurt your hand and the fight is not May 21st. It's going to be July 21st.
Agreed.
Or you got a cut. The fight's not going to be this date. It's going to be a postponement has an end game. It's not here. If it's open ended, and it's a violation of the WBC clean boxing program. It's a positive test, that causes a fight not to happen. Then that's to me not a postponement. We don't know what the end game is. Is there a ban? Is there a suspension? Are there fines levied? Is there what repercussions are there from the fallout of this, particularly in light of the entire scandal that's going on with the Russian track and field team, and are they even going to be able to field a team at the Olympics? How widespread is this? What are the ramifications of all this? So to me, that none of that fits the definition of a postponement at all. For me, the fight is definitely off for the 21st, and then we're going to have to wait and see what the WBC says and what their ruling is, and we'll proceed from there, and we'll make our decisions, from there based on what they say. But we're going to see how committed and how serious the WBC. This is their new shiny car, the WBC clean boxing program. We're 1,000% behind it, and we believe in it, and we're hopeful that that they're as serious about it as they say they are, and we're going to find out.
What is the speculation of what the punishment may actually be for Povetkin in him going against the clean boxing program?
That will be determined by the WBC. I have no idea. I know that you can look at other boxers' suspensions and see what they've gotten. I've seen suspensions across the board from a few months to a couple of years for different substances. So we don't know. I know I heard that the WBO had already dropped Povetkin from their rankings entirely. So that's I think pretty interesting. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I think for the integrity of the sport, this is a defining moment for the WBC to show the world exactly where they stand, and we're looking forward to hearing what their investigation uncovers and what results come from their investigation.
Do y'all have any idea when they're gonna give a ruling?
None whatsoever. We just don't know. We're just on kind of standby, and we're just taking the time to relax and kind of decompress from the fight. See, boxing is not the kind of sport where you can pick it up and move it over and set it down, and that your guy be at the same level. It's you're better off for a fighter standpoint to let him decompress and take a month off and start over, better than you are to try to maintain a level of fitness, focus, and intensity over an extended period of time past what it should be. I'll give you a quick analogy. If you're cooking a good Southern Thanksgiving dinner and you've got all the rolls and the turkey and the gravy and the dressing and the ham, and you've got it all going on, and you've got everybody coming over at noon. It's 11:52, and everything's coming out of the oven, everything's just right, and they call and say, "Oh, it's not going to be noon. We're coming over at 6 p.m." Okay, well, as a Southern man, that meal is not going to be right at 6 p.m. It's going to be good, but it ain't going to be like it was at noon, right?
Right. Great analogy.
Like a fighter is not going to be the same if you try to hold him over. You're better off throwing the meal away and starting over, and that's what we're looking to do.
I want to talk about the money, because
that's what I was going to add. That's what I was going to add. BG.
Not only was this fight knocked off and put on pause, but there was some money that was at stake. This was a $4.5 million, I guess, monies that Deontay could have obtained from this fight. So what happens with the money under these conditions?
Well, that's a great question. We certainly are going to do everything in our power to make sure Deontay Wilder is taken care of, that his rights are looked after, because this was not his fault. He did everything right. He did everything the way he should. He was ready, willing, and able to fight, and through no fault of his own, this fight is off. And I think that's something that we are looking very, very strongly at. Al Heyman is on top of it. Shelley's on top of it. I'm on top of it. That is kind of concern number one when it comes to us. The thought that that nothing, there are no repercussions from this and no obligations that they would have financially is that's just not that's not fair. This is a thing where Deontay is out a lot, and through no fault of his own, and through no happenstance. This isn't, like I said, a cut or an injury. This was a violation of a rule, and so in our line of thinking, his rights have to be looked after.
But I've read an article, and I don't know how true this is, in which I can't pronounce the promoter for Povetkin. I can't pronounce his last name, but he's been in this instance before, and I've read that he's won the lawsuit. I don't know how much of a different angle this is, but from reading that amount, it concerns me. From reading that article, it concerns me.
Well, no. The actual you can look that up, and what you would see is, it's a matter of public record that Guillermo Jones, who was a Don King fighter, I think was supposed to go to Russia to fight Lebedev or one of their fighters, and so actually he was on the other side of it. The fight was not allowed to go on because Jones tested positive.
Gotcha.
And so my understanding was the Russians sued Don King for the exact same reason that we're talking about.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it actually is a great
It's the reverse. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's precedent. This
Okay.
has happened before, and of all people, for it happened where they were the victim, the Russians were the victim, and they absolutely should have been compensated and were,
Gotcha.
for what they went through. So we'll have to see how it shakes out, but that's a matter of public record that happened. So that's just one of those things where fair is fair, and Deontay Wilder, we have to look after him and look after his rights, because again, he's totally the victim. He did everything correctly, and this fight should have gone on with two clean athletes with clean tests all the way through. That's the way it's supposed to be done. That's what's right, and Deontay did his part.
Jay, let's get you out of here. Last question. Where is Deontay now? What is he doing? Have you spoken to him? Is he in Hawaii, Maui somewhere, Punta Cana somewhere hiding out? What is he doing? What is he doing now? Where is he at, and how is his spirits now?
I actually have encouraged him. I said, go on your trip, relax, enjoy yourself. And he's not in that frame of mind right now. He kind of feels like, like he has been wronged, and that this, he doesn't feel like he can go and enjoy himself when he didn't get to fight, through no fault of his own. And so he is in Tuscaloosa. I talked to him a couple of times yesterday and a couple of times today, and he's still in fight mode, and he's still very, very, very frustrated over this whole set of circumstances, and he wants justice. I mean, he wants things to be made right, and that's how I feel too. That's in it's just a question of right and wrong, how you're going to handle things, and there's a right way and a wrong way. We stood for the right way when we decided that we couldn't fight if it wasn't a playing field, and we're standing for what's right now, which is to look after Deontay Wilder and his interests.
Hopefully they'll just come on with their decision as what they're going to do as far as this fight and Povetkin and his ruling, so that you guys can move forward and start your plans for the remainder of 2016 moving into 2017. So hopefully they'll square that away so we can move on and allow the champ to fight.
He's the most active heavyweight champ in almost 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
With four title fights in 12 months, were unheard of. And then we were right back in the saddle for this fight, and then we had hoped to come back from this May fight and then come back in September, and then we wanted to come back before the end of the year as well, and start getting these guys like Klitschko and or Fury, whichever one comes out of that mix. Down the road, Anthony Joshua.
That's what I was going to say. Anthony Joshua, that name's a new
David
name.
Hay is a huge fight. There's so much excitement in the heavyweight division, and Deontay Wilder is not going to wait around. While other people, this one fight a year type guys, they can go somewhere else. That's not. We're in this to fight, and so that's what we're going to do.
Are you guys thinking about another fight? Have you guys even thought about that? Or are you just going to let this right here kind of settle down before you even start thinking about what's next?
Well, we're definitely interested in staying active, but we don't know exactly what that means yet. I don't have a timetable, but as long as Deontay gets, a month away from the sport, and then gets back in the gym, then which he will, then we're ready. You know, we don't need a whole lot of time to get ready for a fight. So I'm hopeful to get him back in the ring. You know, we just don't want to wait around for several months for things to shake out. That's not good for Deontay. It's not good for anybody.
Jay, thank you a lot, brother. This has been very, very informative. I think what we were able to talk about is really some things that people wanted to know. I mean, people have been asking, they've been wanting and waiting to hear what really happened, and you were able to provide that today.
Anytime, guys. Just anytime you need information or anything, you give me a call, and I'll be glad to be on.
All right, so we'll be calling for that loot. What was the loot? That loot treatment that he gives. That's what we need.
The luxury box.
The luxury box. All right, Jay. I really appreciate.
That's actually interesting because the name of my company is Sky Boxing. Okay.
Oh, I know exactly.
The way we came up with that name, I took a fighter to an Alabama football game. He had never been to a football game before. And he turns around and he notices those luxury boxes. He said, "What's that up there?" And I said, "That's the Sky Boxes. That's where you want to be." And he thought about it and he goes, "Sky Boxing. That's where you want to be." And I said, "Well," "You just named my company." I said, "That's." And so I had not come up with a name for my company at that time. And so he gave me it's like come down from heaven. He gave me Sky Boxing right there. That's where you want to be.
And that's a perfect plug, Jay. Are you still allowing people in the Tuscaloosa area to come in and do training and fitness there?
Absolutely. We've got a lot of young fighters coming up behind Deontay and turning some of them pro here in a couple of months, and excited about the future. You know, Deontay opens doors, co-promoted a show with me last year, and he's going to do the same this year. He's all about helping these young guys out and getting them started because he knows that there were doors opened, you know, for him, and he for every door that was open for Deontay, he's opened up 1,000 for other people, and so that's the great thing about him. He's that kind of guy, and I'll tell you, the best thing he ever did for all these young fighters, took away their excuses. You can't say, "I can't do it. I'm from Alabama. Nobody's done it from here," because you know what? That guy in your very same gym did it. So I don't want to hear any excuses.
Any names you want to drop that we should be on the lookout? You got some guys turning pro. Anybody that you like?
In particular, a kid named Dion Nicholson. He's a young kid. He's going to be turning pro here shortly, and he's a light heavyweight, and he's got a lot of skill, and he's going to be a good kid.
So he's not going to go through he's not going to do the tryout for the Olympics, any of that. He's going to go straight pro.
No, he's had probably 25 amateur fights, and I think he's won 23 of them. And he's in his early 20s, so we're not going to wait for 2020. You know, that would put him closing in on 30. So we're going to go ahead and turn him pro.
Gotcha. All right, Jay. Really appreciate it. Tell the people how they can get in contact with you. I guess they can go to the gym.
Yeah, go to the gym or just go on, just Google Sky Boxing with 2 Y's, SKYY. Just Google Sky Boxing. It'll pull up all the sites you need.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, thanks, Jay.
Thank you, guys. You have a good day.
All right, you too. Hey, BG.
Yeah.
This was a great show, BG. I thought it was very informative. I learned a lot. I think the people are going to appreciate what we were able to get out of this show.
My main man, Jay Deas, stopping by the FreeLunch podcast and dropping jewels. Ain't it something that we have access to the WBC champion of the world, the Bomb Squad, and still?
It's amazing, BG. I wake up every time I do this. It's just I look back and I just reflect and just say, man, it is amazing how we can get the coach, the manager of the heavyweight champion of the world to do an hour-long podcast, BG.
And we cooking on the heavyweight champion himself, so y'all stay tuned to that too.
Anything that you want anything you take away from today's podcast that kind of stood out to you? Because I think we got some really good questions out of him.
Well, just the whole process, man. I was just impressed with the fact of how even in a sport like boxing, what you just think is just 2 guys getting in the ring and battling it out, just the team, the preparation, and making sure things are in order, traveling, and all the logistics things was pretty amazing to know that all of that behind the scenes stuff goes on. And I guess it would have to, though, with so much at stake, so much money. It makes sense to make sure that all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed in this particular sport. So that's the takeaway that I got from it, that it's more than just two guys putting on gloves and punching. It's a whole lot of effort and preparation that goes into it.
Man, this was great. This was amazing. I enjoyed it, man. I really, really did. And some of those questions were, Coach, BG, I always say, Coach, give a Hall of Fame podcast. Coach, I might have did a Hall of Fame podcast today, Coach.
You did your thing. You got down. You did.
All right. Down. I don't normally do Hall of Fames. You know, I stumble. I don't, you know, you got all these Russian names that people can't pronounce and all these PED meds that can't pronounce, but that was Hall of Fame, BG.
You got down, man. You rep like a true sports reporter, so I ain't mad at all. Hall of Fame. You get it.
BG, let's get out of here. How can people tune in to more the New South Movement Network and FreeLunch podcast and everything we're doing?
We at them same places that we always at. Start with www.freelunchpodcast.com. Also, we're on Instagram at FreeLunch Podcast, Twitter FreeLunch Pod C, YouTube FreeLunch TV. We are a member of the New South Movement Podcast Network, giving you some of the hottest podcasts this world has seen, starting with this one, the FreeLunch Podcast, the Retroscope Podcast, D1 Sports Talk, and the Girl Talk Podcast. Check for it, iTunes and SoundCloud. Search New South Movement, and we'll be right there.
You think he was just messing with me when he said that's a good question? You think that that's just routine, or you think that was a good question?
I don't think he would lie.
I
don't think that man would be on here and tell a lie. So I think it was authentic. It was genuine, man. That's Jay Deas, Alabama's own. He wouldn't do that to you.
BG, let's get out of here. This is your boy Tight, one half of the FreeLunch Podcast duo. We got the main man, BG Zan.
BG the 2-7 kid. Yes, sir.
Man, I thought you were gonna be able to tell us about that Meldonium or whatever the hell that is. I thought you were gonna be.
Listen, son, we don't use that. I don't know nothing about that. That's strictly performance enhancing on this side.
Gotcha.
I don't know nothing about that.
All right, then. We out of here, man.